Weapons always close to end, for he has seen too much hatred. The weapon that he chooses is love, universal call, now for justice.
Hi everyone. So, it's a very beautiful time of the year here in Tanzania. It's harvest time, and aside from the connectivity that brings to Mother Nature and the thanks it brings to the importance of having good seasons or having a disease-free year and having a good harvest as we grow a great deal of food that we rely upon for the rest of the year to feed the children in our care and those that we work with in the local communities. Aside from all of that, there are other things at this time of year as well. And one such thing is the maize is very dry. And as the night breeze comes, a few meters to my right, there is maize growing. And as the night breeze comes, it begins to move and rustle. And you find yourself jumping up with the torch as you're not sure if some wildlife is passing by, or is it a person walking by. And I just had a moment where I shone the light and I said, oh, there's nothing there. But then I paused and realized that I couldn't be any further from the truth, because life was there. The moving of the maize, the sound it's making, the wind moving it. Life was there. Might not have been sentient life. Might not have been life with a central nervous system. Might not have been life that in this current state of consciousness that I'm in, I can speak to. Perhaps in altered states I can, or we can. But life was there. And it makes me want to speak about something that worries me, but also something that I haven't spoke about enough, and also something at the same time, a topic that nourishes myself, my heart, and my ability to do what I do here. Now, my relationship with nature connects me so deeply to God. You are closer to God in nature. This is how it is for I on a personal journey. I don't feel close to God in man-made places of worship. I don't feel closer to God at any other time than perhaps when I'm serving God in my daily life with the children. But if I'm alone and still, when I'm around this beautiful design that is just as much His child as I automatically feel a closeness with God. Now, many people think I'm Christian, and I get onto that in a moment. But actually my outlook is much more pantheist than anything else. It's a mixture between pantheistic and panentheistic. Now, if you don't know what that means, many have said pantheism is the polar opposite of atheism. That God's love and nobility and humility and intelligence and creative design is in all things and should be respected in all things. Pantheism can also be said in certain uses to say that you respect the worship of other gods, for you believe that it's just the way of the human intellect worshipping the same God that you are connecting to in your heart. Pantheism, for all I would not say I'm pantheist. Pantheism is seeing God in it all and seeing the universe as a manifestation of that God. Now, the reason I say I'm in between some places here is I see that. I see God in the children I work with. I see God in the design of the plants and trees around me. I see God in the food that I eat and the food that I harvest. I see God in the weather. in the seasons. And no, it's not pagan. And pagan is often said to be such a bogeyman these days, sadly. There's nothing wrong with many of the pagan ideologies. But the reason I say, no, it's not pagan, is because I'm not worshipping this. I'm respecting it, and I'm grateful for it. Just as I'm grateful for my children, I'm grateful for my wife, for my family, for you guys. I'm grateful for this aspect of God's creation too, and the food that I eat, which dwells from life like this. Stems, I should say, from life like this. Now, pantheistic or pantheism would say that all of that is so, but that is not the all. The all is not simply this collective reality. Because how can a creator of existence exist? How can the bread maker be inside his bread? He made it. And I don't believe that this collective is simply the all. I believe there is, beyond this time and space of consciousness, of this reality, that there is a source that we will never find within this reality until we transcend it. So that's why I'm between pantheism and panentheism. I do see God in it all. And the worry I have is, for instance, I had negative comments about paganism when I was married in a stone circle, saying this looks very pagan to I, and saying look at all the bad things that paganism has done in history. Well, I'd say look at all the bad things humans have done, under every religious belief, under every spiritual practice. But if you are to call holding deep respect and gratitude for the plants I grow and for the trees that I live in amongst, because I'm lucky enough to live in a forest. Paganism, then, I would say I'm pagan. But the problem is I respect them as God's creations and I worship the source of creation. So obviously I'm not pagan in that label. And this is my worry, that people seem to forget that why not be grateful to other life? Don't forget to be grateful for it. It gives you life. It's part of you. You are not going to be able to breathe without it. You can't eat without plant life. No way you can. You can't walk without the ground coming up to meet your feet. And if you forget to add that into your praise and your worship and your gratitude, then you miss a direct line to God. It doesn't mean I'm on my knees worshipping a tree or worshipping the maize that I'm growing. I'm just ensuring that I'm grateful for it. And in that sense, a lot of my spiritual practice, for all I have influences from everywhere at this point in my life. I have a lot of Far Eastern influence on my meditation. I have a lot of influence with regards to, which I'm getting onto, the Christian side of things, my moral outlook on the world that we live in. For all I have a lot of guidance from the people I've met that I see are doing good in the world, and understanding the parts of their character that I can embrace and understand the strength behind and adapt and try to nurture and grow within myself and my own character. And then of course my direct experience with altered consciousness by fasting and praying and spending time alone in nature. Countless days, weeks, months I've spent alone in nature, learning from Mother Nature. And of course this is deemed, in some retrospects and in some schools of thought, to be shamanic. I think it's no secret that the Native American practices have a huge influence on me and my union with God. And that is another influence of mine, the Native American way, which also echoes in many of the tribes, albeit many of them sadly have westernized to such a degree here, but many of the tribes I work with and the tribal elders here still have many similarities and connections to the way that the Native Americans have done, just their history is not so well recorded. And the last of the recorded history is in the way of life of these people that I am now trying to assist, who sadly, for all I don't try to bring them out of their tribal ways, because their tribes have dispersed. They are now beginning to go hungry and struggle. Predominantly elderly women, as it would happen. So the tribal influence on myself and their pantheist way of looking at the world has had a huge impact on me as well. And part of my practice to commune with God is pursuing that and spending as much time alone in nature as I can, as well as spending time in meditation when I need to. All you need to remember about your spiritual practice is that you need a brief moment to allow the photon to enter, to give the message and saturate your mind via your pineal that God wishes to send to you. And if you do not get out in nature and into the natural light, and if you do not sit quietly and stimulate your pineal in meditation, if you not eat healthily, if you overindulge in things that take you away from that space, such as entertainment, etc., or overeating and so on, then that message which travels as a photon can't reach you in that space of distraction. But in the space of nature, it only takes a split second every day for that message to reach you and to nourish your being and your soul and your mind. And my spiritual practice is all geared towards that. It's geared toward allowing at least once a day for that photon on that angle of light to enter from God. And I find that walking in nature. I find that having deep respect and conversations even with the trees and plants around me. I find it in even sometimes encouraging the plants that I need to be strong to feed these children. So that's my spiritual side. It's an eclectic mix, but very heavily influenced, as I say, by the pantheist or pantheistic way that the tribes of this planet, who held a reverence for Great Spirit, as it is called, and a deep respect for Mother Nature, and a belief in the equality and the love for the other beings on this planet that are not human in form, is one of the main influences on my spiritual practice. That said, what I never found within there was a very certain and easy to understand moral guidance code. And thus I have a combination of this practice that allows me to find union with God. This practice that incorporates things from the Far East, incorporates endurance exercise in nature, incorporates time in nature, incorporates meditation, prayer, fasting. These are spiritual practices, but the moral guidance system I use predominantly is predominantly that which was left behind by Jesus Christ. And so I'm not a Christian, nor am I a pantheist. But I see the teachings of Jesus as quite faultless at creating good men, good women. If someone follows them and obeys them and finds the discipline to stand by them, you can't fail to be a good person. But what I struggle with is how Christianity, many of the congregation can't stand by them. And I believe by adding these other disciplines, which work on the relationship of your spirit, your soul, your being with God and his creations, and the gratitude and love I feel for them, which connects me to he and allows me to disconnect from my thoughts and my ego and reach up to that place, as many of you know I call the field, the place of stillness. And following the teachings of Jesus Christ is difficult to do without finding a spiritual discipline. And that's why I've said in the past, Buddhism can make you a better follower of Jesus. Having respect and love for nature can make you a better follower of Jesus. But Christian, I will never say I am. But I will always say that daily I will do my best until the day I depart from this existence to live by the moral and gleamingly, obviously correct way to live that was left in the teachings by Jesus Christ. But sadly, I don't like the approach, not all, but the approach that many followers and worshippers of the man, instead of followers of his word and what he told people to do, people who go to church and pray to him and don't manage to uphold his instructions, would benefit greatly from understanding what I see from having this mixture of pantheist, panentheist outlook. So, my meditation practice was learned from Far Eastern. The pagan side of me, the pantheist side of me, if you will, is found in the humble and honourable way by which many of the tribes lived on this planet, and still do live around me, that I try to help as best I can, and try my best to show them that it's important they pass on what they know morally outside of the time of the missionaries coming here, about sharing to their younger generations. So, my moral guidance comes from Jesus Christ, predominantly. There are other sources, obviously, including my own internal moral guidance, but inside our current system, many people have had an attack on their moral guidance system, and many young people don't know what's moral and what is not. And if they would just listen to what he said and not what the church says, they would realize that nothing but as powerful, a very powerful, mature and disciplined human being can come out of following the teachings. Now the problem I see is many can't because they don't have any knowledge on a spiritual practice, and thus these teachings seem unachievable. We live in a society of a great deal of immorality that seems to be fun to the youth. So of course they don't understand the true joy and adventure is outside of them. They don't see far enough. But spending time in nature, as the tribes did, will give you the vision to see. My spiritual practice is pantheist. I've learnt much from the Far East. I've learnt much from Mother Nature and direct experience, and how God spoke to me through that. So how could I label myself a pantheist who is somewhere between pantheism and panentheism, who uses his own experience with fasting and communing with God and living in complete service of God daily to teach myself what is on my moral radar and what is not, whilst also thankfully having found that outside of the institution of the church, if you follow just the words of Jesus Christ, you can't help but fail to become a good person. And I think that kind of just encapsulates all of it. So I think I'll leave you all, because I had a plan to put this in somehow, with a very beautiful piece of writing from a German poet and philosopher that I've just came across into my life, because I think it speaks volumes for those who fear paganism and the like, and seem to forget that just because you believe in one source of creation, as I do, as we call God, don't forget to be grateful to your brothers and sisters. But this is what they are. Intelligent design, intelligent creation, just as you and I. So, God bless.